Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate National Conference of District Judiciary in the national capital on Saturday. Will also unveil stamp and coin marking 75 years of establishment of the Supreme Court. European Union's defence ministers meet in Brussels, focused on the bloc's military support to Ukraine. EU to consider training more Ukrainian soldiers. US Republican presidential nominee Trump campaigns in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, accuses Vice President and opponent Kamala Harris of being a communist. Polls show Kamala Harris pulling ahead in key states. In Paralympics, India's Rakesh Kumar enters pre-quarterfinals in archery competition. Fifth seed Rakesh will face Indonesia's Shan for a spot in the quarterfinals. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the National Conference of District Judiciary at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi on Saturday. The Prime Minister will also unveil a stamp and coin commemorating 75 years of establishment of the Supreme Court. The two-day conference, organized by Supreme Court, will feature 5 sessions on district judiciary issues, including infrastructure, inclusive courtrooms, judicial security, case management and training. The Chief Justice, Union Minister for Law and Justice and the Attorney General will also participate in the inaugural program. And with an aim to boost connectivity in the Indian states of Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will flag off 3 Vande Bharat trains via video conferencing. Realizing Prime Minister's vision of Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat, the state-of-the-art Vande Bharat Express will improve the connectivity. These new Vande Bharat trains shall provide the people of the region the world-class means to travel with speed and comfort. The introduction of these Vande Bharat Express trains will herald a new standard of rail service to meet the needs of regular travellers, professionals, business and student community in immense measure. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was in the western state of Maharashtra on Friday, laid the foundation stone of India's largest deep-water port, Vadhavan, in Palghar. He also inaugurated 218 fisheries projects and launched the national rollout of vessel communication and support system. Here's more in the report.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone of the Vadhavan port in Palghar district of western state of Maharashtra on Friday. The port is set to elevate India's maritime capabilities and significantly boost its global trade profile. PM Narendra Modi visited an exhibition before laying the foundation stone for Vadhavan port in Palghar, Maharashtra.
2014 में आप सबने हमें दिल्ली में सेवा करने का मौका दिया। 2016 में जब हमारे साथी देवेंद्र जी की सरकार आई, तब इस पर उन्होंने गंभीरता से काम शुरू करवाया। 2020 में यहां पोर्ट बनाने का फैसला भी कर लिया गया, लेकिन उसके बाद सरकार बदल गई और 2.5 साल तक फिर यहां कोई काम नहीं हुआ। आप मुझे बताइए, अकेले इस प्रोजेक्ट से यहां कई लाख करोड़ रुपए के निवेश का अनुमान है। यहां करीब 12 लाख रोजगार के अवसर पैदा होंगे।
Built with a cost of nearly $9.14 billion, Vadhavan Port is one of India's largest deep water ports. The port will feature deep berths, efficient cargo handling facilities, and modern port management systems. The port is expected to generate significant employment opportunities, stimulate local businesses, and contribute to overall economic development. Once operational, the port will enhance India's maritime connectivity and further strengthen its position as a global trade hub. The port will comprise 9 container terminals, 4 multipurpose berths, 4 liquid cargo berths, a ro-ro berth, and a Coast Guard berth. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also inaugurated 218 fisheries projects worth nearly $1.87 million aimed at bolstering the sector's infrastructure and productivity across the nation. These initiatives are expected to generate more than 5 lakh employment opportunities in the fisheries sector. Prime Minister also launched the national rollout of vessel communication and support system at a cost of nearly $4.32 million. Bureau Report, DD India.
India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval participated in the signing of the founding documents of the Colombo Security Conclave. The signing event marked a significant step in regional security collaboration among India, Maldives, Mauritius and Sri Lanka. Following discussions at the 6th NSA level meeting held in December 2023 in Mauritius, the Charter and Memorandum of Understanding of the conclave were signed in Colombo, which will pave way for establishing the CSC Secretariat. The agreement aims to enhance the grouping's role in addressing security and stability challenges in the Indian Ocean region. While in Colombo, Doval met with Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena and national security advisors of member nations including Sri Lanka's Sagala Ratnayaka and Maldives' Ibrahim Latif. Doval also interacted with other Sri Lankan leaders in Colombo. And the Indian Meteorological Department issued a warning about Cyclone Asna, which is currently a deep depression over Arabian Sea. The cyclone is bringing heavy rains to state of Gujarat, but is expected to shift west-northwest over the northeast Arabian Sea and move from the Indian coast in coming hours. The Weather Department also stated that the deep depression has been moving at a speed of 14 kilometers per hour with a latitude of 23.6 degrees north and a longitude of 66.4 degrees east. As the storm approaches, residents are urged to stay alert and heed official warnings to ensure safety during this critical time. Also, due to heavy rainfall, numerous towns and thousands of villages experienced waterlogging in the state of Gujarat. The State Emergency Operations Centre reported that state has witnessed almost 111% rainfall so far, and more rain is forecast till September 5th. Vadodara city, previously hit by a flood-like situation due to swollen Vishwamitri river, is gradually returning to normalcy as water level has receded in most regions. Well, at least 4 people have been killed as Typhoon Shan batters Japan. Hundreds of thousands of homes continue to remain without power. The typhoon is one of the strongest to hit the country in decades. Authorities advised over 3 million people to evacuate. They have also warned of possible landslides and rivers bustling their banks due to heavy rain. And DD India's Chris Gilbert joins us from Tokyo for more. Hello, Chris. Millions have been ordered to evacuate their houses. What's the latest you have for us?
Millions were ordered to evacuate their houses a few days ago. That's no longer the case. That was the case back on Thursday, and that number is actually attributable to a sliding scale of evacuation notices ranging from 1, which is please prepare for a disaster, all the way to 5, which is please evacuate your houses immediately. And most of those evacuations were on about 3, which is to voluntarily evacuate if you had the ability to do so. But the advice at that time was also please don't go outside if it's not safe. But a lot has changed since then. The typhoon has been downgraded to a tropical storm. As of tomorrow, Sunday, it looks set to be downgraded again to a tropical depression as it continues to slowly head at about the rate of about 10 kilometers an hour over Osaka and towards the south of Tokyo Bay at the moment, over the Tokyo and Izu Islands. But even though the winds have died down to about a third of what they were, authorities and the weather agency is still warning of the dangers of the storm with the heavy rain that it's bringing with it. It's currently calm in Tokyo, but yesterday there were extreme deluges pushing the rivers to bursting point, and again more evacuation orders for people in low-lying areas that are liable for flooding. And even all the way up in the far north of Japan in the Hokkaido region, which is still hundreds of kilometers away from the storm itself, there is the risks of and warnings of extreme heavy rain. This is due to the warm air coming off the storm, really creating havoc for most of the country. 400 millimeters is set for the next 72 hours for central Japan. There are already many landslide warnings in place for the prefectures around Tokyo and in northern Japan. That's set to only intensify as the rain continues going into next week.
Chris, any update as far as the rescue operation is concerned?
Yeah, we do know that 6 people have died, and we know that about 104 are injured, and the people of Kyushu are only just now, perhaps on Saturday, being able to take stock of the situation. As I say, like the winds have died down, but for all of Japan, extreme rain warnings stay in place. West Japan has still received, a record-breaking amount of rain for a 48-hour period. Up to a meter or more in some places. There's an intense amount of rain which has still raised river levels, created flooding, and also the winds for West Japan have blown trees all across the road, and so there are reports of at least 160 reports of damage to properties. Many plants like Toyota have closed their plants for the entire country for a few days, and really the whole country is still hunkering down at the moment, as calm as it may seem here in Tokyo, because at any moment the rains could start again while the storm is hanging over the country. And once it well and truly passes, that's when people are going to be able to go out and assess the damage to their homes and to their neighborhoods. As I say, 6 have died in the storm, 3 in a landslide, more than 100 are injured, and 1 or 2 are missing. And the authorities really don't want those numbers to increase any further.
Chris, and how are authorities managing the situation there, as heavy damage to properties could be seen in the videos that are coming out?
Yeah, so the main approach has been to warn people to evacuate before the storm hits. Once it hits, it's really too late. They then advise people to hunker down and stay safe. For the landslide warnings at the moment, the main advice is to stay away, if you're in a house near a hill, stay away from the slope where landslide warnings may be in place. If it is safe to do so, get to a sturdy building or strong housing away from hills, out of low-lying areas, out of flood zones. There are multiple threats and multiple risks still at play. Not at least landslides, because half of the deaths so far have been landslides, and authorities are just urging vigilance, especially even the governor of Tokyo is urging vigilance until the storm passes next week.
All right, thank you so much, Chris, for your analysis. Now, Africa has been hit hardest by the rapid spread of Mpox from the Democratic Republic of Congo to 12 other countries, leading to the WHO to declare it a public health emergency. Despite the virus's long presence in Africa, vaccine access remains limited, exposing stark inequities in global distribution as wealthier nations vaccinate those at much lower risk. DD India's Isaac Lucando has more.
Africa has yet to receive adequate supplies of Mpox vaccines. Nigeria recently became the first African country to receive 10,000 doses amid the current outbreak. The disease has been a public health issue in Africa since 1970, but only gained global attention after a 2022 outbreak. Despite 2 vaccines proving effective globally, African nations remain underserved. The Africa Center for Disease Control has received $10.3 million in emergency funding, but still needs 10 million doses. Bavarian Nordic, a biotech company, has offered 2 million doses this year, but distribution has been slow, with shipments to the DR Congo delayed. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has authorized its partners to speed up vaccine purchases for Africa, but urgent approval by local regulators is necessary. Most importantly, health systems in countries like DR Congo are overwhelmed, and experts are warning that short-term solutions will not be enough. Isaac Lukando in Dar es Salaam, reporting for DD India.
And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Top Brazilian judge orders the suspension of Elon Musk's X. In Paralympics, Indian shooting contingent will once again be in action on day 3 as they look to continue medal rush.
As our ecosystems change, we not only need to amplify our efforts to save them, but we also need to adapt our lives.
Today, everything grows here. At an altitude of 5,000 meters, we grow mushrooms, strawberries, watermelon, and tomatoes. It's been made possible by the introduction of technology.
It's like with stocks. You diversify your portfolio to minimize risk. That's what we're trying to do with the mixed forest, too.
People's mindset is changing in favor of electric mobility, and I see huge success in the future as well.
Same eelgrass is one of the most important elements in the ecosystem along the Baltic Sea coast. It produces oxygen and provides habitat for smaller fish.
You're watching DD India Live. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj. Updates on the Russia-Ukraine conflict now. 1 civilian was killed and 7 were injured in Ukrainian shelling of the Russian city of Belgorod. In footage released on social media platform, a building could be seen on fire while another building appeared to have a hole in the ceiling and shattered windows. Meanwhile, a Russian-guided bomb attack on Ukraine's northeastern city of Kharkiv hit residential building and a playground on Friday, killing 7 people and injuring at least 77. Kharkiv has been the focus of heavy Russian bombing throughout the conflict, although there had been a drop in intensity in recent weeks, possibly related to a shock incursion launched by Ukrainian forces into Russia's Kursk region. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed the head of country's Air Force on Friday, days after the crash of an F-16 warplane in what may have been a friendly fire incident. Zelensky gave no specific reason for the decision, but said that it was necessary to strengthen military leadership.
I have decided to replace the commander of the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. I am immensely grateful to all our military pilots, all engineers, all mobile fire group warriors, and all air defense personnel. To everyone who is truly fighting for Ukraine for results.
Zelensky further added that the country is not just talking about long-range solutions, but about strong solutions.
We in Ukraine and our friends around the world are not just talking about long-range solutions, about strong solutions. We are talking about what can bring this war to an end. Because the most important thing for Putin in his wars is terror against civilians, intimidations and cruelty towards people.
The plane crashed on Monday while defending against an intense aerial attack by Russian forces, which on Friday hit an apartment block in Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, killing at least 7 people and wounding scores of people. Meanwhile, the European Union's defense ministers have wrapped up a meeting in Brussels focused on the bloc's support for Ukraine. The EU will consider training more Ukrainian soldiers and may lift restrictions on their weapons being used by Kyiv to strike deep into Russian territory. DD India's Alex Kadir reports from Brussels.
The big focus for the defense ministers at this meeting was Ukraine. We heard that from Josep Borrell, and we heard that from, frankly, most of the EU's defense ministers. That was divided into 3 sections. One was support for Ukraine and whether or not neighboring countries, particularly Poland, would start intercepting Russian assets flying through their airspace to target Ukraine. That has been a request by the Ukrainian government for a while. There is concern from Poland, from the NATO alliance, from the EU that if they do shoot down Russian weapons in their skies, that involves them in a way that could risk escalation. That was one big question. The other one, of course, was with regards to Ukrainian air defense and whether or not the European Union would consider allowing Ukraine to strike deeper into Russian territory with European weapons. That is something that, particularly when it comes to Germany and France and their weapons, there are still restrictions placed on how deep into Russia Ukraine could use them. The Ukrainian government wants to target Russian military infrastructure deep into the country. That same infrastructure being used to strike civilian targets in Ukraine. So that was a big part of this meeting as well. We heard from the foreign ministers just a day before looking at potential sanctions against 2 Israeli ministers, not officially confirmed, but the assumption is it's the finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, and the national security, Itamar Ben-Gvir. Josep Borrell, the EU's top diplomat, pushing quite hard for sanctions based on their statements about Palestinians, something which Josep Borrell said could have been in breach of international law. So clearly the focus on Ukraine, on possibly lifting those restrictions, on possibly shooting down Russian assets in European skies, and of course on funding Ukraine's reconstruction with frozen Russian assets after the war. So a lot for those defense ministers to get through. In Brussels, Alex Khadje reporting for DD India.
And US Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump held a campaign rally in Johnstown, Pennsylvania on Friday for the first time since his attempted assassination in Butler on July 13th. Donald Trump wrapped up his verbal attacks on Vice President Kamala Harris, describing the effect she has had on every single place she has touched. Trump also accused Vice President and opponent Kamala Harris for being a communist. Opinion polls show Trump has lost ground with women voters since Vice President Kamala Harris became the Democratic candidate in the November 5th election.
67 days from now, we're going to win Pennsylvania. We're going to defeat Comrade Kamala Harris. If you look at Kamala and you look at what she's done to every place she's touched, has turned to shit. Every single place she's touched.
A Brazilian Supreme Court justice ordered on Friday the immediate suspension of social media platform X in the country after a court-imposed deadline expired for the company to identify a legal representative in Brazil. The move is the latest chapter in an ongoing feud between Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexandra de Moraes and Elon Musk, which also included the freezing of satellite internet provider Starlink's financial accounts in Brazil. Amid the underlying feud over X, Brazil's Supreme Court also blocked the local bank accounts of the Starlink satellite internet firm, which is 40% owned by Musk, leading the company on Friday to ask the court to suspend that decision. And let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. At least 2 people were killed in Recife, Brazil, after a church roof collapsed on Friday, according to local authorities. Around 17 people received medical assistance and officials do not expect further fatalities. Search efforts continue through the rubble. Chaos erupted in Culiacan, Mexico, as clashes between cartel gunmen and security forces led to widespread road blockades and burned vehicles. The violence began when armed forces were attacked en route to the municipality of Cesar Maria, sparking a confrontation. 2 soldiers were injured in the shootout, with armed groups setting fire to trucks and buses, causing major traffic disruptions. Residents of Caracas criticized Venezuelan authorities for a nationwide power outage on Friday, attributing it to a lack of proper maintenance of the electrical grid. Police officers managed traffic in absence of functioning lights, while some business opened, relying on cash transactions and serving customers in the dark. And let's take a look at all the updates from Paralympics. Indian para-archer Rakesh Kumar has entered into pre-quarterfinals of the compound men's open category at the Paris Paralympics. Rakesh Kumar began his campaign with a 136-131 win over Senegal's Alio. Fifth seeded Rakesh started strongly, hitting one perfect 10 in the first end to take the 3-point lead. Alio took the second end with 1 point, but Rakesh still held his head and his lead as well and extended it by 5 points in the third end, shooting 2 10s. The Indian went on to establish a 6-point lead, winning the fourth end. Asian Para Games silver medalist Rakesh will face Indonesia's Ken for a place in the quarterfinals. And the Indian shooting contingent will once again be in focus on day 3 as they look to continue the medal rush. Parachuters Rubina Francis and Swaroop Mahavir will once again have big medal hopes on their shoulders when they step on to the shooting range. They will start the day with the qualification and turn their attention towards the finals if they are able to make it. In archery, Sheetal Devi and Sarita have advanced to the elimination rounds in the individual compound open event. They will compete for quarterfinals. In badminton, Mandeep Kaur and Manisha Ramdas will compete in women's singles, while Nitesh Kumar and others will hope to progress in the men's singles. All right, and Nicole Kidman and Antonio Banderas dazzled the red carpet on Friday at the Venice Film Festival during the world premiere of Baby Girl, directed by Alina Regine. The Dutch director joined them alongside young stars Harry Dickinson and Sophie Wilde. That's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.